Battle of Malta webpage. Did you say it was on 888 as well?
Yes, it's on 888. It's also on so on Facebook it's on 888, it's on MPNPT, and it's on Battle of Malta. On YouTube we are on also Battle of Malta and 888 Poker.
There we go.
And on Twitch we are on Battle of Malta and Thrill Poker, but we are watching the Battle of Malta chat quite a bit.
So Stephen's picked up a strong hand for the second hand in a row, tens this time in the big blind. Sergey has limped the button, so Stephen is always going to raise here. Tens is incredibly strong heads up.
Quite a big raise though.
Yeah.
It's going to make it hard for Sergey here.
Yeah, he's out of position, so he's gone on the bigger side. That means Sergey has to fold a lot of hands now, and this might be one of them.
They are suited.
They are suited, yeah. Yeah, there's a massive difference actually here between King 4 off and King 4 suited. So he could very well make the call here, even though it's a big raise.
Is it not just 2%?
That's what they say, but it's more the playability. It's more the fact that when you have a flush draw, you can continue. When you backdoors, you can continue. You just hit far more flops. But yeah, in the long run, if they got it all in pre-flop, it does only add 2%.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So you're learning all the time.
So he has called, so we're going to see the flop.
My.
And look at this.
Both players getting a piece, but Stephen with the top set.
Top set against bottom pair, but also the backdoor. We talked about why King 4 suited is a better call. Now, it isn't when your opponent flops top set, but at least it means he has some equity.
Yeah.
He'd be pretty much dead without the flush draw. Stephen, I mean, this is a good hand to slow play, but given the way Stephen plays, how aggressive he is, he's pretty much always going to bet this flop, whether he has hit it or not. Just the fact that he's hit it so strong might give him pause, but he has come out betting. He's bet super small. He's bet 2.1 million into almost 10 million.
And Sergey thinking it over. I don't know if he's thinking about raising, calling. I don't think he's thinking about folding here, but
I assume he's thinking about calling because the price is so good.
I'd like to see what he was doing with his hands.
Yeah, players tend not to raise in position as much because
he has made the call.
He has made the call. He'll probably fold the turn now unless he improves. So
lucky for him, he does not improve, actually.
Yeah.
He may be thinking, I bricked. That's a shame, but...
I like this check from Stephen. This is a really good check. Because Stephen is going to bet this board 100% of the time on the flop. So therefore, he's going to get called quite a lot. But he then has a lot of hands that have to give up on the turn.
Mm-hmm.
And now, because he has such a super strong hand, he's basically mixing that hand in.
Here's an announced check.
Oof, is what Steven Van Zadelhoff is probably saying to himself with his poker face as he sees that check back. That hurts a little bit.
I mean, you have such a good hand. You never are up against a better hand. There's only one better hand, and there's no way this guy has queens.
No, there's no way this guy has queens,
Come
Jonathan.
on.
So
almost never.
Clearly, it seems like Steven Van Zadelhoff thinks that Sergey has a little bit of wiggle to his waggle here and is expecting that Sergey is going to pounce on some of these things that Zadelhoff is doing, both on the flop and on the turn. On the flop, Van Zadelhoff betting so small might be a little bit to induce, might be a little bit because he's crushing the board. What do you think, Jonathan?
I think it's probably both. But still, even crushing the board, I would expect a slightly bigger bet than this normally, unless you suspect your opponent is going to make some plays at you if you bet tiny. Because the hands that might call on this board when you bet, a fifth of the pot are also going to call when you bet a third of the pot when they're in position and you're this deep and you still have a lot of streets to go. Like gut shots are going to call.
And as we see, Sergey has a hand that would have certainly called a bigger bet with the King 4 here, flopping the 4. On the turn, Zadelhoff checking is certainly unconventional.
Very much so.
It's the thing to talk about so far in the hand. And our best guess here is that Zadelhoff has seen Sergey play and seen that he's a little bit of a wacko and is just trying to get him to do his thing.
Yeah.
And it's not working here on the turn, unfortunately.
No, Sergey has enough of a hand that he can check back. Like, he doesn't need to bluff anything. he can just check it back and not have to put in chips drawing dead.
Right. That said, the solver actually really hates Zadelhoff checking here and wants him to bet 98% of the time.
It just hates Zadelhoff. It doesn't hate the check.
That's separate. That's a separate thing.
It's an emotional issue between the two.
They have a problem, but it
Yeah.
also hates the play, and it's not biased. It actually does hate the play.
Yeah, it does.
But as we said, I think this is just a play of pure exploit, just expecting that Sergey is the guy who's going to go for it at some point. And unfortunately for Zadelhoff, that just doesn't happen here.
Yeah.
Zadelhoff's plan might not be working, but your plan to sign up for Nitrogen Sports just began. What an exciting time for you. If you check out our Twitter feed, that's where we tweet about this hand and about Nitrogen Sports. If you use that link, you get access to our monthly tournament, Jonathan. Happens every the last Sunday of every month.
It sure does, and it's great because there's a massive overlay. They put in 1,000 buy-ins come hell or high water, and you know what? We get like 100 players, meaning there's 900 extra buy-ins in that frickin' tournament. You have to play this tournament.
You got to play it. You got to get on Nitrogen, get you some poker and some sports betting.
He's quite happy to check.
And any bet, I do think, would be enough for the hand from Stephen in the shot.
Can't imagine Sergey. I mean, if Stephen bets small here, Sergey might call. He's more likely to call on the river than on the turn, not having improved. But
Ooh,
there's Biggie.
it's about 7 million. It looks like, so about half the pot.
about
But we'll
half
see.
the pot. Yeah.
Count it out. And this can go either way, actually.
Yeah, Sergey hasn't snap folded, so he's going to have a think about this.
That is a great shot of a poker player dwelling on what to do in the biggest Battle of Malta ever. The cogs are going round. That is a great shot. It's still a 4.
Yep.
And it's still a king. Unfortunately.
Yeah, he would have folded on the turn. So Stephen might possibly extract a little bit of extra value here.
Anything can happen, though. He's reaching for chips.
Yeah, he might be going to make this call. He's really only beating a bluff, so it comes down to how often you think Stephen is bluffing here.
Well, he is
Reaching for
counting
the
out.
stack.
He's not counting out to raise, surely.
That would be enterprising, but
he
won't
kind
work.
of is.
So look at this. Look at this. He might be turning his made hand into a bluff.
2, 3. That's 15. That's 16. That's 17.
And watch him grab the cards now and toss them in.
So roll a
This is ballsy, but
18.
as we know, it's wrong
19.
timing. It is wrong timing, as we can see. But yep, they're going
They're
in.
coming in.
There's the bet.
Yeah, he's turning his hand into a bluff here. He's trying to get Stephen to fold a better hand than his, but a weakish hand, like a
A 10-9 maybe.
10-9, ace-8 that's hit a pair on the river.
19 mil.
Now Stephen has to do a bit of Hollywooding.
Yeah, it should just be a call, shouldn't it? Or is he? Does
There
he
is a
think?
flush on the.
There's a
potential
flush, but it's a backdoor flush, and he has
Yeah.
to think that Sergey would have bet the turn if he'd picked up equity.
Yep.
So now he's trying to figure out what kind of hand he's doing this, and can he extract value from the hands that he beats. There's a small chance, obviously, that he's behind to a flush or something weird like. Well, I guess 5-7 got there as well on the which was the open ender on the flop. So
I'd be surprised if he raised here, but he's maybe thinking about that rather than. He's obviously not thinking about folding.
yeah, he doesn't have the nuts, but he has a very strong hand, so he has to evaluate if I raise and get called, how often am I going to be ahead? And that's pretty much what he's thinking about at the moment.
Maybe there is something to this Van Zadelhoff theory of Sergey being a guy who's going to go for it a little bit. Maybe there's a little bit of something there.
I would say Sergey went for it.
It
right
does
there.
look like Sergey went for it. Okay. So Zadelhoff betting the river, that's rudimentary. You know,
course.
You're going to bet the river with his hand.
I mean, a lot of draws come in, but so what? It's so hard
It's
for
difficult for Sergey to have 7-9 or Jack-9 or even 5-7 as played. You'd really expect him to bet the turn with those when he gets the opportunity.
Ditto
when he's
clubs.
checked with clubs as well. And of course, Van Zadelhoff also blocks the 10 of clubs. One of Sergey's most likely club holdings is 10x of clubs.
Mm-hmm.
He could also have 6x of clubs. Those are the ones that make some sense as played. So Zadelhoff feels pretty safe to bet this river, right?
Oh, yeah. It's for sure. We got to try and get value out of probably an 8, and if we're lucky, a 10, but probably an 8.
Yeah, maybe a 6, a sticky 6.
Oh, yeah, a 6 is possible, too. You're right.
But how about getting 19 million out of King 4? That could be a plan, too.
That's a good deal. So what do we think about this raise?
That's a great question. All right, so let's go through the options that Sergey has here and what it looks like Zadelhoff has.
Yeah.
Is it necessary to raise? I guess is my first question. Should we be considering raising at all, or should we just call or fold?
I think we should at least consider raising. It looks like we're behind a fair amount when Zadelhoff bets here. Like, Zadelhoff did raise pre. He often has, like, a showdownable hand. Not always, but often. A lot of showdownable hands beat us, right?
Okay, so you're saying there's not enough bluffs that we can profitably call?
I don't think there is. I'm not saying for sure there isn't, but I worry about that when the 8 comes in specifically.
Okay.
You know, that, like, makes some stuff, and it, like... There's not too many hands left. There's some weird aces that would have to be bluffing now, and I don't even know if aces would feel the need to bluff.
All right, next question. What's the bottom of Zadelhoff's value range?
Well, we talked about this in our podcast, and we decided it was probably ace-8.
Yeah.
So we think pocket 9s, any 10, he can bet here.
All right, so we're targeting an 8, pocket 9s, or a 10. We don't expect necessarily a queen to fold or a better hand than a queen, right?
We would also expect a queen to bet the turn, so we don't really think there's too many queens there.
Right.
I mean, the reason why this raise is at least kind of interesting is because Zadelhoff checks the turn. He looks a little bit weak here, even though he bets the river, and it looks like you'd expect him often to continue with his draws on the turn.
So when you say weak, you mean worse than King 4?
No, I just mean not like super strong. Not like it turns out he's super strong with the set.
Yeah.
I mean weak that he's going to fold to a raise. I don't mean if we thought we could beat him with King 4,
Yeah,
of course we would.
of
call.
course.
No, I'd be worried that he has like a middling pair. And that's problematic, of course, because we can't beat that. And maybe we can get the middling pairs to fold. That's the thought process, but there's some real problems, of course, with actually raising here.
Yeah, of course. Such as, sometimes Zadelhoff isn't as weak as he looks,
Yeah.
like right now. That's one problem. Another big problem is the story we're telling here.
Right.
We were just talking about the turn and talking about what it would look like if Sergey had a draw. And usually that looks like a bet. If you have 7 high for 5-7 or a club draw with no showdown value, you're really going to take that shot a lot of the time when you get the opportunity because you need that fold equity.
Especially if you're a bluffy guy, you're going to take it even more. And clearly, Sergey's a bluffy guy.
Clearly he is. This raise was never going to work against Zadelhoff's actual hand.
Right.
But I'm not sure it would have worked against a lot of his other hands that he could have too because the story just doesn't add up to me.
I agree. It's just so unlikely. It's the 6x of clubs. That's it. That's the one type of hand that makes sense here.
Well, from Sergey's perspective, he could also have the 10x of clubs. Just we know that Zadelhoff has it, so
that's fair.
So if we're Sergey and we're trying to justify our play, we might
Right.
say I could have the 6x or 10x of clubs.
Right.
But that's a little too thin. I don't think it really makes sense enough for it to be profitable to raise. I think if I were going to choose between raising and calling, I would prefer to call. I think calling's a little bit better, but I think folding is my first choice.
I think folding is pretty clear here because it just looks like we're being beat and we can't tell a good story when we raise. Those are two really good reasons to fold. Clearly, also, our rep is such that we're the crazy guy and we're up against a dude who's got $2.2 million in earnings. He's not going to be afraid to make some big calls here, unlike a bunch of other players.
As we see, Zadelhoff makes the call relatively easily, which makes sense with the hand he has. Briefly, quickly. It makes sense that he doesn't 3-bet either because, clubs come in and straights come in.
Now, you may be saying, sure, that's what you guys think, but what does the solver say? Well, with this raise, the solver is not a fan very much so. 0.3% of the time does it want to raise here and mostly fold, as you see.
Yes, it does want to call a little bit.
Yep.
So calling's okay with the solver, but raising, it's like, Sergey, get off my lawn.
Whatever you're doing, stop. So the river kind of exploded with chips and excitement.
Like a meteor.
A meteor that explodes, yeah,
full
sure.
of dynamite.
Anything else that might be full of
That's how
dynamite.
the dinosaurs died.
You know what happens to a toad that gets hit by lightning? The same as everything else. That's an X-Men 1 reference. Halle Berry said that. So,
Wow.
What do you guys think about this whole hand release? Zadelhoff plays it a little bit weird in that he bets so small on the flop, checks the turn, and then ultimately we see Sergey really going for it on the river. Do you guys like these decisions? Do you think Zadelhoff should just be betting the turn? We certainly would usually bet the turn against most opponents. Do you think this raise by Sergey, even though the solver doesn't like it and we don't like it, is actually pretty good? If so, let us know, and let us know why. If you don't like it, we want to hear about that too.
Something you're guaranteed to like, stamp of approval, is our book. It's called How Can He Fold?
Guaranteed.
It's a guarantee, which is not backed by anything. But you can go to thepokerguys.net and get our book. You can get an ebook there. You can get a book on Amazon for a paperback. It is 37 tournament hands. We break them down in text conversations. You learn, you have fun. It's worth getting.
Yeah.